In this demonstration, I'll be showing you how to create users and groups in Linux. So we're going to be using Kali Linux for this, our Kali Linux virtual machine. I've already got the virtual machine up and running. Now what I want to do here in VMware is make sure that I'm full screen and in this case exclusive mode so I can see my bar across the top because I want to open a terminal emulator or command prompt window so I can type ifconfig. I want to find out what the IP address is for this particular virtual machine. Now your IP address will be different, more than likely, because you're connected to a different network with DHCP than I am. Either way, I'm going to take note of this IP address. The reason is because I want to use the free PuTTY tool to make a connection to this virtual machine over SSH instead of using this interface. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how that's going to happen. So here on my Windows computer, I've already downloaded and installed the free PuTTY tool and I've fired it up. And I've actually created and saved a set of settings here called Kali VM, and I've popped in the IP address that we just looked at, which was the result of running ifconfig. I don't have to do it this way. I just personally prefer to make a remote connection using PuTTY because the interface is a little more clear and cleaner than just doing it directly in Kali Linux. So log in as, I'm going to specify Kali, the password will be Kali, and we are in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a group, and I can do that, first of all, using the sudo prefix because I need to do this with elevated privileges, and I'm not logged in as root. Sudo, the command is group add to add a group, and I want to call this group HQ for headquarters, HQ_admins. Now, because it's the first time since I've logged in that I've run the sudo command, it wants me to specify the password for my current user. My password is Kali, and we are good to go. Apparently it worked. Well, we can verify this. Why don't we use the sudo command tail. Tail means I want to see by default the last 10 lines of a text file, unless I specify otherwise, /etc/group. That's where group definitions exist by default in Linux. And sure enough, at the very bottom, we have a reference for the group we've just created, HQ_admins. There's no password, so that's what the X means. However, the group has a unique ID that was assigned, and that ID is 1004. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a user account as per step 4 in the exercise with a home directory. And I also want to make them a member of our newly created group, HQ_admin. So I'm going to clear the screen and I'm going to run sudo user add. Let's add a user called U4 for user 4 -m. I want to create a home directory -g. The group I want to add them to is HQ_admins. I can add them to the group after the fact, or in this case, as I'm creating the account. Okay, so that's good. It looks like we've got that set. Now let's set a password for that account. sudo password, spelled PASSWD. For user 4, U4. Let's enter the password of Kali and let's confirm that. And it says password updated successfully. Now, as per step 5, there's a note that says for production environments, always follow your company's password policy requirements. Kali is not a strong password, but we're trying to keep things simple and consistent just for the lab environment here. Okay, let's take a look at the user account file. We looked at the group file. Let's do the same thing. Let's run sudo tail/etc, but in this case, for the password file, PASSWD. If I press enter at the bottom, notice we have a reference to our newly created user, U4. So this is a valid user account. And we see the home directory /home/U4 and the default Linux shell /bin sh. But what's interesting is we don't see the password reference here, despite the fact that we're looking at the password file. And that's because these days it's stored, the password hash is stored in the shadow file. Okay, so let's take a look at that. sudo tail/etc/shadow. And we do have a reference here at the end for U4, user 4. And then we've got this big, long password hash. And then after that, we've got password expiry information. And all of those fields are separated with a full colon as a field delimiter. But we do have a password hash here. So let's log in as that user. Let's test it out. Let's clear the screen, and here in my terminal prompt, I'm going to run su to switch user, space dash. The dash means I want to do a full login and run any login scripts for the user and so on. And the user in this case is u4, user 4. Okay, and it wants the password. Sure, Kali. Okay, looks good. If I type, let's say, who am I as per step 9 to verify who I'm logged in as, I'm logged in as user 4. So there you go. It's pretty easy to work with users and groups with a standard Linux installation at the command line. So I'm going to go ahead and type exit, and I'm back to being my Kali Linux user.